Welcome into the big show. Ironically enough, the big show is literally upon us. The NBA Finals are set, ready to get going Thursday night. Congrats to the Boston Celtics on their 22nd overall, which seems a little crazy. 22nd overall finals appearance. And the Warriors, they took a couple years off, but they had previously made 5 in a row, winning three titles. And now the dynasties of old versus the dynasty of new meet together for maybe bragging rights of who is chief amongst the new age versus the old age. That being said, there is plenty of new Celtics.
So Boston, shout out to Boston for making the NBA Finals. Boston seemingly became a new team over the All-Star break where they were just running through teams, making them top 2 in the East when they came in. Also, throughout the playoffs, they dealt with teams such as the Brooklyn Nets with KD and Kyrie, made them look like, regular players other than marquee players. They played against the champs, the Bucks, did the same to them. Some would say that, they everybody that they played had a lot of had injuries to their star players, but still Boston was able to get through and make it all the way to the finals. Right now, I want to discuss what went right for Boston. Shad, you have anything to say about Boston's meteoric rise and their this young team making their first finals appearance?
What I think went right for Boston is that they won on the road. I believe in the last series in Miami, they won 3 games on the road. So that shows like a good playoff team that's kind of ready to win. They didn't have home court advantage, in that series. They won't have it in this series, I believe. But you're gonna have to take at least one on the road to win, these series into the underdog. So when you win 3, I think that's what goes right. Also, what I think went right is they played with tenacity. Most of the games that they won in these series have been blowouts. So you just know that they play hard. Seems like they have some veteran leadership with, Al Horford, even though he's never been to the finals. He seems like he's been in the league forever. So he kind of has the leadership with the young guys, Tatum, Brown, and Smart. And then they seem to have, fresh coaching. Udoka's doing a great job. I don't know if people say they're, Brad Stevens players, but Brad Stevens never got him this far. I don't know if they're just too young or styles are different. But I think Boston is ready to win this championship. I just think they showed it just by going on the road is the biggest factor.
Thanks, Shad. Greg, what do you feel like went right for Boston this season and allowing them to make the NBA Finals?
I think the biggest thing for me is depth. There are not many teams in the league that were going to lose Robert Williams for a lot of the playoffs, Marcus Smart for games in the playoffs. They seamlessly you had at the guard position, you had Derek White and even Peyton Pritchard played big roles throughout the playoffs. And Al Horford, every which way, was the man. I mean, on the court, he had the game of his life. One of the games of the playoff series, that what Chad touched on, the veteran leadership, they were a little rudderless the last year. A team we all know who had so much talent that just seemed to be regressing up until February this year. I think Al Horford was just immense. I mean, Grant Williams in the game 7 against Milwaukee hits the 9 threes. They, as good as their star players are, to me, depth was they were the better team and they were the far deeper team, and that's how they got there.
How much of a difference did, considering the fact that when they really took off in the second half and really started this run, considering it was right around mid-season, trade deadline, all-star break, that sort of thing, how much of an impact did Derek White contribute to the run and going into the playoffs, staying hot.
I think he was just another, they were a little unsettled at the guard position. He didn't, his numbers aren't overwhelming, but I think just adding another piece to the puzzle. So if one of the guards is out, they're not playing 48 minutes a game. They bring in a steady hand off the bench who that's exactly it. Keeps them steady. So, I mean, I think that was a huge factor. And then also the other part about the turnaround was if you looked at Tatum's numbers pre-February, yeah, his points were up there, but if you looked at his shooting nights, he hadn't shot the ball nearly as well. Obviously, like any team, your best player has to be great. And he was a different player from February on. He played like a top first team All NBAer.
Go
No,
ahead,
go ahead,
Jared.
pardon. I was just saying, like, I would always make this joke to you, seeing Al Horford play so good, like, oh, he has to be juicing. he's like reinvigorated. He's out here playing like he's in his 20s, 18 years in. I think he's made a real difference for the Celtics.
Huge. He really was. I think just even the leadership thing, when they were down in series, a guy like Al Horford, he's lost in physical talent, he's gained for his acumen for the game. Mm-hmm. So he's that wily veteran who just knows the right thing to do on the court, off the court, how to deal with adversity. He was huge. They're not here without Al Horford, no doubt about it. He was immense. So happy to see, him get a little of the glory because he's always been an excellent. I don't call him role player, but he's not considered, the A1 star in the league. But he was awesome, really was.
Yeah. And he traded huge threes. Like he was never necessarily a bad 3-point shooter, but like so many like game 5, game 6, game 7 situations, he's stepping out there and hitting them.
And I also think, a motivating factor. He has a little of a chip on his shoulder. He was being paid not to play last year. They did not want him to play. So there was a viable chance that he might not have even had a place to play this year. I mean, his career was totally in flux, and I think it's an awesome job by him. He was outstanding.
Yeah, what surprised me the most with him was defense, like just some of the blocks he made at the rim. I think last night he had a block on like Strus. I didn't know like Al Horford was really that athletic, and he's been showing it. Like it seems like he's 25 instead of like 36, 37 years old.
Yeah.
He's just surprised me. The switching, he just like bringing that leadership tenacity, especially in the defensive end. It seems like they're leaving him open on offense, but he's making these shots that you guys are too.
Yeah. And on the Celtics team, he's allowed to play which is his natural position of 4. He doesn't have to play the 5 because with Robin Williams there, he can step into that 4 position.
And touching on Robert Williams, when that injury, that was a huge injury. The fact that you had a number of guys who did it, but they needed Horford even more once Williams went down. And Shad said it was defense. He did. He played big time on both ends.
Yeah.
Like he won't be playoffs MVP if they won it, if they win it, but you could in some ways make a case for him.
Right.
Chad, do you want a moment to kind of dust off, clout your laurels and dust off the trophy case since you're the only one on the panel who had a correct finals pick?
Really? I didn't ever notice that.
Oh, please. Oh, please.
No, I really didn't. I thought you guys at least got the West right. I thought somebody said
no, we all picked Phoenix.
Okay.
I mean,
well, yeah.
At one point I picked the Warriors, but we're going back to like the last week of March. So if you grant me the end of March, then sure, I got one right.
If we started our finals picks after round 1, I had it right from there, but the Nets didn't exactly cooperate. But funny enough, touching on that quickly, they not only because they beat the Nets the way they did coming out of that I'm like, wow, Boston's cooking with gas now. They are primed and ready to roll, and they sure have been.
Yeah, I think it makes up for my Lakers pick, so I'll cancel it out.
Shut your dome still for real.
You're forgiven. Well, speaking of the Warriors, they are the other half of this equation, and they took a couple years off. They're right back in it. They got a mix of old. They got a mix of new. Greg, start us off on a Dub Nation. What's how are they coming into this? Are they coming into this like running on fumes because the West was a little off this year, or is this different molding of the same old Warriors team and they're going to be ready to go?
I would say the latter, right? I mean, I think even the young guys, the adversity with Clay being out for almost 2 years, he looks like a little kid in the post game conferences. You can tell how happy he is. It's like a second lease on life. Steph, the crew wasn't together the last few years. He was with a troubled cast. He's like reinvigorated, and you have Jordan Poole, who's become a big time factor for them. You have Kuminga, who's moody. The point is they're the same old, but in a better, younger way as well. Depth is a factor for that team, just the same as Boston. As much as we think of, it's Clay, it's Steph, it's Draymond, there's a lot of guys who've played big minutes. Kevon Looney absolutely played out of his mind. He had 23 rebounds in the closing game. So I mean, I think they're coming fully gassed and ready to go.
Chad, are you ready to admit you may have been a little quick to engrave the headstone on Klay Thompson?
No, I think the Warriors are fool's gold. Honestly, I think they got all the matchups that they needed in the Western Conference. They played a very injured one-man team in Denver first round. Then John Morant got injured in the second round, and then the third round they played everybody considers a one-man team in Dallas. So I don't think the Warriors were really ever tested. I think if they would have played Phoenix, they would pretty much got swept, because I don't think this is the Warriors' old. I just think the Warriors just have gotten lucky. Steph, he's still good. I think he's lost a step. I think Clay has lost a couple of steps. Jordan Poole is too up and down. And the role players, I don't think are ready yet for this championship, kind of glory. I think a lot of those guys are like a year away. But I'll save the rest for later.
Yeah. No unveiling picks yet. Save that to the end. Partner, what you got? We've talked it off air a few times about age versus youth with these two.
Yeah. I feel like Boston's a very big team to deal with, like once they have everybody healthy. Klay Thompson, he's been very like streaky throughout the playoffs. I feel like at times the Warriors force like the offense to go through him. And I think like that could be a detriment to them if they, playing against the Celtics in the finals. But I don't know. Dubs have been great. They played a lot of injured teams. So has Boston, but they still had their best players on the floor. Brooklyn with KD and Kyrie. The Bucks with Giannis.
Are you opening Pandora's box? Are one of these teams a fool's gold?
For surely. But like Shad said, I gotta save it for later. But shout out to the Dubs for making the finals. Hopefully Steph could submit his legacy, because I feel like he needs this win. And needs a finals MVP to kind of like cement his legacy, but we'll see. I love to see it.
What do you guys think? Is the Jet onto something with maybe some fool's gold with either of these teams, with who they've played and catching them at the right or wrong time?
I'm agreeing 100% with them. I'm not sure if we're on opposite sides of the spectrum, but I think we're both thinking the same thing of fool's gold.
Yeah.
I do not think it's fool's gold. Listen, they've got a few breaks like anyone else has. Teams, almost every team in the playoffs has lost guys to injuries at this point. I think Golden State hasn't even been pushed to the limit in any of these series. So it's not like they waddle through and scratch it out at Game 7. So I've been impressed with Golden State. I don't think it's fool's gold.
For me, like in that Memphis series, like with the Warriors, I feel like if Ja was able to play and not be injured, they would have been pushed. I really feel that way.
Yeah, it probably
Yeah.
would have been of course. I mean, as good as Ja is, but it's not Golden State's fault, right? I mean, exactly. They're playing who's put in front of them.
Yeah,
They
did what they were supposed
whatever
to.
Business they had to handle.
Yeah,
and that's I've been impressed. I don't think it's fool's gold. I'm not drinking the haterade with you guys.
So being that we went through the two teams that are in the finals, and laid out, congratulations to both the Celtics and the Warriors. Shad, who would you say that would have the advantage in the finals out of these two teams?
Well, I think the Warriors definitely have the advantage. I believe the Boston Celtics don't have anybody that's ever played in the finals game, and the Warriors, have their core kind of guys in that have been to multiple finals. So I think clearly the Warriors have the edge, but I think that's where it kind of stops.
Greg, who has the advantage out of these two teams in this upcoming finals?
I think for me, the one, if I want to call it discernible, I have a feeling Golden State is going to struggle with Boston's physicality. I think size may be an issue especially if Robert Williams is healthy. They're just going to throw a lot of big bodies out there, and sometimes the core of their defense is not they've been good out in the perimeter. They've struggled in the paint. I think Boston game planning correctly. I think the big men for Boston are going to eat. Yeah. They're going to have some big games in that series. That for me would be the advantage I see if I look between the two teams.
Partner, how you feel?
I think there's a lot of advantage at the top going in the Warriors corner with that intangible quality, but like everything on paper, and take that for what you will, how often it actually comes through or not. Everything on paper to me is Boston. I think they've got the youth, they've got the depth, they're hot. You could say the Warriors being an older team are going to be benefited by having some extra time off, but extra time off also means rust. And I think Boston, especially being the younger team, is much more served coming off of the games they played and just having to travel, basically. Like, we just played, we're good, we're hot, we're firing on all cylinders. Let's get on the plane, go play.
Right.
For me too, the one other thing is that judging off, they just won 3 road games. So in some series, if you say, if you think it's close to a toss-up, you'll often take the team who's got the home court. I don't think it matters right now. The Celtics, obviously, they won 3 games in Miami. So the advantage the Warriors would have having home court, I think, is mitigated by Boston's played fantastic on the road, arguably better than they have at home. So that's going to help the Celtics.
How silly of me not introducing us at the top of the show, but at this stage of the game, I think everyone knows who we are. I, of course, am America's favorite bitch ass white boy, CProc. My partner in crime, James the Jet. Our guest sport analyst, Gregor's in the Shaddillac. As always, you can follow us and get in the conversation on Twitter and Instagram at HoopsBoysPod. And we're not done yet. It's kicking around. We'll dust off the coffins and tell you how the other teams are going to go forward after their most recent defeats at the hands of these teams we've just talked about. Hoops Boys Podcast. Keep with us.
And we back, Hoops Boys Pod. Want to talk about some teams that have gone fishing in this playoffs, and I want to start with the Miami Heat. Jimmy Buckets was really phenomenal in this Eastern Conference Finals, but it wasn't enough to get over the hump to beat the Celtics to go into the finals. Last segment I started with Shad. So Greg, how do we feel about the Heat? Like, is this team, should they run it back? Do they need more pieces? How do we feel about the Miami Heat going forward?
The thing I would like, for me, I think you're almost a little on the fence because you can't dismiss what a great season they had, which they did. I mean, you come within a game in the finals. You took the 1 seed in the East. Poor performance at home game 7, but this is not a blow up the ship type of deal for me. I do think for my own, what will Kyle Lowry look like going forward? That to me would be the big problem area. Whether it's injuries, age, he just doesn't look like the same player right now. And again, he was hurt, but that to me, he's got almost an over 28 million and 29 million over the next 2 years still. That's a lot of money for somebody who looks to be on the decline. So for my money's worth, if they're going to make a move, it probably would involve trying to find a taker for Lowry and bring something back in return. But on the flip side, again, I mean, you have a lot of very near their prime or in prime players, Bam, Butler, even some of the secondary contract like Max Strus.
Yeah.
The point is they're getting a lot of contributions off of Gabe Vincent, even undrafted players. So I mean, yes, it's disappointing, but again, if you take the whole season, encapsulate, they've had a great year. You lost the game 7 to a team that I just think honestly was a little better than them, period.
Yeah.
But Kyle Lowry, that situation for me, that requires watching because he does not look like the Kyle Lowry of old to me at all.
Yeah, that 3 that wasn't by Strus, that kind of deflated the Heat a little bit at the end of game 7.
Yeah. And that too, you look at that, they really were probably a 1-shot difference from being in the finals. Like you said, if they hit that 3 to go ahead, that was trouble city for Boston. So disappointing, yes, but not. No, they had a great year.
Much like your Kevin Durant reaction from last year.
But even that, right? I mean, same thing. Obviously their season this year because of Kyrie and all the mess, but that's the same thing that with them the year before. They literally were an inch from going to the finals. Yeah. So Boston, I don't see Miami that differently. Yeah. It's a lot of good young kids, players in their prime. I think the cupboard's still quite full for them going forward.
Shad, how we feel about Miami going forward?
I think they actually had a great season. I think probably just about everybody on that team realistically say that they would take this season. It wasn't like a true disappointment. They kind of maxed out where people expected them to be in the conference finals. I think Greg touched on that. Yeah, they definitely have to kind of figure out something with Kyle Lowry. I would definitely try to trade him, release him, whatever. I think Gabe Vincent should be the starting point guard next year. I also think that they need to probably get rid of somebody like PJ Tucker or somebody because they need more scoring.
Absolutely.
As you probably saw, it seemed like Jimmy Butler was the only person who was trying to get his own shot, and that's I think what kind of hurt them in the end. It was like the Jimmy Butler show. They need to kind of get a secondary scorer. Maybe Tyler Hero kind of step up more, but I still think they need another person who could be a playmaker to get their own shot. It seems like they have a lot of standstill shooters, a lot of people who do the dirty work. And really only Jimmy Butler and kind of Tyler Hero to kind of, score, when they need to, other than, getting wide open shots. So my move would probably try to trade a couple of those pieces and to try to get, somebody to get their own shot. Maybe they could bring in a Brunson, like that, a Dinwiddie, or somebody who just, get their own shot. Doesn't need to be the main scorer, but that second, third option. We need somebody get 20 points on their own and creating shots for others. I think that's what what they need. But I think they've reached their ceiling if they don't kind of make any kind of.
I agree.
Something Shad just touched on too. Tyler Hero. I mean, this is what I mean by this was obviously such a close series. Hero being missing time and not being 100%, that impacted the series.
Yeah.
Just as Shad talked about, they needed more scoring, and that surely didn't help when Hero was out banged up. So,
To tie your 2 points together, is Tyler Hero now mature enough to be able to step away from Kyle Lowry, even if you don't necessarily get a 1-for-1 point guard in return?
I don't think so. I think Tyler Hero is more just like a sixth man, like somebody who just comes off the bench like an old school, like not old school, but like a Jamal Crawford comes off the bench to get you 15, 20 points and, doesn't really care about getting other people involved, but he's going to worry about, his kind of scoring and just getting that spark off the bench. I think that's kind of what his role is as a player. Maybe he could develop, into an all-star type player where he's getting, 6, 7, 8 assists a game. But I think, him to maximize his skills, he just to me seems like a straight up scorer who gets you off the bench to get you 15, 20 points a game. And that's what he kind of should be, in my opinion.
Do we feel that Miami might benefit themselves by going out and try to get some more size, like so Bam can play the 4 instead of playing the 5? Or do you think Bam playing the 5 is what unlocks that team and makes them who they are?
Well, if your alternative big is PJ Tucker, then yeah, definitely go out and get someone else. But on the same hand, you also don't want to put yourself in a situation. Who's the most recent comparison I could think of? Where you've got two bigs that are just taking up too much of each other's space.
Yeah.
No,
go ahead, Shad. Sorry.
No, I would keep Bam at where he is. I would definitely, like I said, get rid of Tucker and, trying to get more scoring. I think they're good enough, with the defense. And if this was like the 90s, 80s, they'd be great. It would, this Miami team that probably could win the championship. But today, you need some scores. You need probably at least 3 people you can count on crunch time. The game to get you 20 plus points. I just don't think they have that right now. So I think, like I said, they got to trade a couple of their pieces, or somehow get younger. They're great at scouting and finding these diamonds in the roughs. So they just need to get a couple, like at least 1, probably 2 scores for the team to kind of get over that hump.
I agree with Shad on the. Sorry, Shad. I don't think the big man issue. The NBA's become more positionless. They've embraced it. As Shad said, they were very good defensively, regardless. I think the offensive end and point guard would be that would be the problem areas from my liking. They need more scoring, and that's where Boston had more talent on the offensive end.
Does Bam work better with a more traditional big, so Bam has more versatility towards what he does on a play-to-play basis, or does Bam work better with a stretch 4 that could, like what Duncan Robinson was supposed to be, someone who just step out and hit some threes?
I personally think, for my money's worth, Bam is good wherever you put him. So I don't think his game is going to be impacted with whatever the rest of the lineup is per se. He can guard multiple positions. Part of the best thing about him is he is that versatile. So he can play different roles. He can guard different positions. So for me, I think he's standalone. He's just a very good player. He's going to be fine however the rest of the roster shakes up.
I think a little bit more floor spacing will allow Bam to really shine, because he can't really shoot that well. He can hit it, but like his play is more in the paint, more around the rim.
As much as I hate seeing Anthony Davis shoot threes, there's no Anthony Davis in that regard. I'll still take Bam over Anthony Davis though. Speaking of taking it out west, I think a lot of people were ready to crown Luka as the next face of the NBA. Maybe Jason Tatum's got a little something to say about that in the next week and a half or so. But where Dallas kind of played a lot over their head. They really took it to the woodshed over Phoenix. Well, we'll get to them more in a minute. But Shad, where's Dallas going from here? Like, is this like okay, they got something going now, some good momentum, or was this just kind of lightning in a bottle and they still need to fill out the Luca and co.
This is definitely lightning in a bottle. This reminds me of LeBron James, his first run in Cleveland. Like you have definitely, I would say, a top 5 player in the league. I think personally, second best player in the league, and he has kind of good role players around him, but he needs like a legit, at least one other kind of all-star caliber player right now to help him out. Because as you see, he has to go out and do so much. He has to pretty much average triple-double every night for his team to kind of be in it. I know Brunson and Dinwiddie and other role players at times, like we've seen like one role player stepped up, in every game. That's not enough. You need somebody you can count on, not just kind of these role players that have to just get hot. So somehow if they can kind of make a move, even if they have to give up, 2 or 3 of their great role players to get like a superstar player, I think that's going to help Luka for him to kind of just take a load off. Because as you see, like it's like high school basketball to me. It's like, all right, we have the best player on the floor, and everybody else is kind of average, and you just got to kind of make things work and get us a bucket, get us wide open look. Like you get double teams, so you pass it over the man, play 40 plus minutes, and you just gotta hopefully you have an excellent game so we can kind of win. So I think they're the one team who cannot stay stagnant. They have to move, be aggressive, even if you think it might be another ball handler type person that may take the ball away from Luka's hands. You have to go get that kind of guy. I don't even care if it's like somebody like a Russell Westbrook. You just need somebody to take the burden off of Luka, even if you don't think they might fit. You just need it's gonna wear down. I just hate to see it. He's such a phenomenal player. And I'm sorry, I don't think Brunson is the answer. He's a good player, but he's more of like a 6 man. So I will not plan him to take like a marginal kind of contract.
I agree.
Rusty's quite the hot take. Greg, what do you think? Does Dallas need a move of that caliber, whether it's Rusty or someone else?
Well, I just think Dallas surrounding cast it's not as good as these top heavyweights. I think considering what their team was, they maxed out. The fact that they got this far was pretty darn impressive. But the talent around Luka, it's just yeah. And for the other thing about them too is they're, of course, in the modern NBA, the 3 ball is everything, but they're far too reliant on it as well. They cannot win a game, when they're shooting 46 threes a game and they're missing 42 of them. I just think the talent around Luka has to get better. The Brunson situation is interesting because obviously he played himself into more money this year. He had a phenomenal playoff run. The owner has also said that he's flat out said we don't plan on losing him. So he probably cost himself a little bit more money because now Brunson's camp will know this. But I do genuinely think that they do want to bring him back. But whether they do or not, the surrounding cast has to get better for them to take another step forward.
Yeah, I don't think Mark Cuban can afford to be James Dolan, give Jalen Brunson a super huge contract. I don't think that would benefit them very much. As nice as it would be to have him back, I don't think they could blow the bank on him.
But if they lose Brunson, they're in far worse shape. So that's the other key to this. I mean, Brunson was quietly very good last year as well, just under the radar. People just figured it out this year. They saw him more. But but I mean, if he left, I mean, that's one less. The rest of that crew is not NBA All-Star level. So for that reason, I think they need Brunson back. So probably going to overspend somewhat, sure, but what's the alternative? That would be the question for me, because they're not getting better if he leaves. They're not.
Yeah, absolutely not. I feel like Dallas, they have a basketball savant in Luka. They need to do everything in their power to get some goers to go, to play with him. Like somebody can go out there and help him fight the good fight. Because right now it's like y'all both alluded, like y'all all alluded to, it's definitely a one-man show. And you can see throughout the playoffs, like, Luka getting frustrated and, taking plays off and stuff like that because, especially with the Warriors, they were outmatched. But I don't know. They need to do something. I agree with Shad. I don't think Jalen Brunson's the answer. But Greg, like you said, if they lose him, what you got? Reggie Bullock.
If you saw too even the in-game numbers when Luka was out during the playoffs, they were staggering. Luka comes out of the game for 4 minutes. They're like minus 13 during that stretch. So they literally were like losing in some games. They were losing leads just the 4 minutes he's out because they're not good enough with it. He has to be on the floor. So the point being, like, if he gets hurt or he needs more help.
Absolutely.
Because Luka is that good. He almost did carry them to the finals. But they, like you alluded to, they were not the caliber of Golden State. They were not even close.
Yeah.
And it's a 2nd round pick. He's got to be unrestricted.
I would not have the numbers for me. I know he is a free agent. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think he's a straight up free agent.
So though Dallas really just has to hope and pray that someone doesn't go full Dolan and give him some contract that they can't pay him.
You're flying the Knicks are going to take him.
Well, I mean, that could happen. That might hurt us, but that could happen.
But again, like, don't misconstrue. I'm not saying he's a max player, but he is a very good player, Jalen Brunson. He really is.
No, he is, and
he is.
There's players out there that are not as good as him that got way more money than you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely. So. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to totally gauge in today's NBA where everyone is going to get overpaid.
Right.
And then you kind of think like, well, what do you compare it to? Do you compare it to, oh wow, this is a lot of money and this really hamstring, really strings us up? Or is this just the way it is and we just figure out a way to make it work?
Well, Brunson, just looking here, I mean, for value wise, he probably was the most valuable player in the league. He made only $1.8 million. And yes, he is an unrestricted free agent at the end of this year. There's going to be at least 1-0 added to that, and maybe more.
Yeah.
That 1.8 might be 18.8.
He will be right on the Rockets.
Yep.
They have all the money.
Yeah.
But I would expect Cuban. I don't think that was lip service. I would expect Cuban to do within reason everything possible to keep him there.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of Dallas, a team they eliminated in the playoffs, the Phoenix Suns. They seem to regress a little bit in the playoffs. I feel like they got exposed. I'm not sure if you blow up this team, but they definitely need a little bit of retooling. Shad, how we feel about Phoenix?
I wouldn't blow it up. I'd run it back for one more year. I'm not sure if I would re-sign Ayton. I think he's probably going to want a max deal.
Yeah.
He wants kind of like that, mid-level starter type of contract. Sure, I bring him back, but to me, he's going to want John Collins money like he won last year. And I just think he's a system player to me. He works well with CP3 and kind of getting these great passes, lobs, and things like that, putbacks. But I definitely want to make him like a guy getting a max contract. I don't think they're really going to get an all NBA type of player. I don't think he'll ever really make an all-star team. But he's kind of like a Clint Capella to me, like that type of player. As far as their other team, I think they didn't do well down the stretch. I think I don't know what it was, fatigue, especially for CP3, who just seemed like all world, in his prime. The first couple games that kind of petered off. Booker, I don't know. I heard he broke with his girlfriend during the playoffs, so maybe that got to his head.
Yeah.
The two best players just didn't play well, and I think it just trickled to the rest of the team. And that was probably the worst game 7 performance I've ever seen. that was all time bad.
It
I think
was.
it was. I think it was just one of those when it rains, it pours. So I think I would personally say they're the favorite in the West if they run it back the team that they have. Once they're smart with the hate.
I did not think we were gonna work in one of Shad's favorite segments into that response, the I hate John Collins moment.
I don't hate him. I just think he's very overrated.
Respect
I,
that.
I don't, you know what? I don't disagree with moving on from Aiden though. I really don't disagree with that.
Dang. Aiden seems to be such a big part of their team, though. How do they feel that?
Well,
that
something
fill that void?
interesting, which kind of went under the radar because Game 7, I'm with Chad. That was I didn't know if I was watching basketball or a horror movie because that was frighteningly awful.
Oh no, it was terrible.
I mean, it's you couldn't have told me in a million years on Game 7 at home, they were down. They were getting their score more than doubled in the midway third quarter. It was an epic disaster for the ages. But something that went under the radar during that because of the score and the nature of the game is Ayton barely played. He got yanked during the game, and when they asked Williams after what happened, why did he play so few minutes?
Mhm.
He said there was his words. There was an issue that we had to deal with, and he kind of left it at that. So now the rumors that they kind of couldn't hide it. Like, why would Ayton only be playing 5 minutes? While they're losing on a 30-0 run for Dallas. So their rumors are now that there are some serious issues with Ayton and either Monty Williams, the front office, whether it's the contract. So I think the possibility of him leaving now is greatly increased. Like I'm higher on Ayton than Shad, for instance. I think Ayton's still on the way up, but that's not going to matter if there's internal issues with him, the coach, or whatever issues he has, period, might be off the court related, that's definitely thrown a wrench into the Phoenix plans now. So, yeah. I mean, it's just, I agree. Phoenix, I think, still will be very good. I heard Barkley say this, and I kind of agree. They just picked the wrong day to have the worst game they've ever had. And listen, the human factor comes in. You start gripping the ball a little tighter. You're down 20. If I jack a 3, we can cut it quick. They just got out of sorts too early, and it snowballed. The deficit got too high, and it was like, oh wow, this is it, because that was a disaster for the ages. I honestly can't remember a Game 7 in any sport the game was literally over in the first quarter in the NBA. That does not happen. And it really was. It was over. But the really Ayton thing, the Ayton situation, whatever, the old saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. There's something going on. Who knows what it is? That's going to be a big factor in their offseason, because either he comes back, which will be at a hefty contract, or they're going to have some money to replace him with and go get someone else. So I think they're still a team on the rise. But we said during the early stage of the playoffs, when they played New Orleans, all these extra games, they may catch up with them.
Yeah.
They did not, those series were grinds that they had. And I think that was part of it. I think Paul, obviously being an older player, it's inevitable. So, yes, he's playing at such a high level still, but do I expect him to play at that level another year? I don't. Will he still be good? Yes. It's normal. You have to expect some sort of regression on his end.
I hear that it's still on the up and up argument, but it's getting to the point where it's like, how many more years is he gonna be on the up and up?
Well, he had he had an excellent year this year. So I don't see as like why, no offense, but why are we hating on Ayton? Like he had an excellent year. Really, I mean, he's very versatile for a big man as well. So yeah, he's not going to be draining threes, but defensively he can get it. So I don't, but the issue with him is just that now. It's like there is something wrong, whether it's off the court, on the court, relationship with the coach. There's something going on.
guess if we could talk about how much three-time champion Clay Thompson has in the tag, we could talk about DeAndre Ayton too. Shad likes to stir the pot. Oh, speaking of teams that were in the finals last year that did not come close to it, the other participant, of course, was my finals pick that I stuck with all year. And they, of course, ran out of steam or ran out of bodies, as may be the case, maybe more the case. That's the Milwaukee Bucks. So where do we stand on the Bucks? Is this just a bad luck streak and, Middleton's out? There's nothing wrong with us. Let's just run it back. Or is there actually some tweaking that needs to happen? Who started off Phoenix?
I think
Phoenix,
Shad
Greg
started
started.
Phoenix. Oh, Greg started? Way
No,
off.
Greg's turn.
Okay.
My turn. Okay. I mean, for me, it's the Middleton injury, plain and simple. I mean, you can't any team in the NBA, you lose someone who's that vital a part of the squad. I mean, I still think Boston could have beat them, but there's no question in my mind they were a completely different team once Middleton went out. So I think the supporting cast that actually played better late down the stretch. I didn't like Pat Connaughton was playing some big minutes. I mean, like anyone, sure, you're going to look to tweak some, areas of concern per se, but I think they're completely fine if Middleton is back healthy. We saw Giannis. He's a monster. He's nowhere near the decline portion of his career.
No.
So you're always going to have a chance with him. And like I said, getting back Middleton is the best thing they can do, and he will be back. So a little bit of bad luck as far as I'm concerned for them.
And I don't know if there really is too much tweaking that even can be done. Like if you go down the roster, like look at each player 1 through 12 or whatever, is another person's 1 better than your 1, is another person's 6 better than your 6, another person's 3, 4 better than your 4, is another player's 8 better than your 8. You know what I mean? Like if you just compare 1-to-1 across the league, like how many situations is the alternative going to be better than what you already have?
A quick glance just too that I'm looking going forward. Every very important piece on their team is already pretty much locked in for next year. They're going to gain about 10 million with Ibaka coming off the books, which he wasn't really a factor anyway. He was hurt. So they're as far as they're pretty set going forward. They can make a move. They'll have $10 million to play with that contract off the books, but I don't think this is some major rebuild of any sort. It's get your second best player healthy, and we'll deal with the rest.
Yeah.
Right.
Chad, what do you got on Team Freak?
No, I'm completely agreeing with Greg. This is the ultimate run it back situation. They just had, bad luck with Middleton getting injured in the middle of the playoffs. They have the best player in the league, in my opinion. They have some great pieces around them who can, score when they need to. They play good defense. They have, this shoot the space before for Giannis, and he's got a motor like I've seen from very few other players ever. He seems to be a workout warrior, so I don't really worry about him ever running out of gas or being injured or like that. So I would definitely run it back. I think they might be the finals favorite for next year. The whole league, just because of Giannis and Middleton on the back. So definitely keep it.
One other thing with them too is, and it just showed. Of course, he's in the downside screw, but like even Brook Lopez, he missed a lot of time this year, and it was a factor for them. You saw when he did play, he brought a presence. He's a big defensively rim protector, and he can shoot the 3. He spaces the floor. So again, I'm not saying he's a star, but they got hurt on the injury front, even with him. I think a healthy core. I'm with Shad. Like they could be right at the top of the NBA Finals favorites next year.
Yeah.
As presently constituted. So they're not going anywhere.
Partner around us out in agreement.
Yeah, I I feel like as long as you have the Greek Freak playing the way that he's been playing, sky's the limit. They get Chris back, they'll be perfectly fine. And now, I didn't know they got an extra 10 million to play with. Whatever decision they make.
That'll get some veteran in there.
Yeah,
That'll get some veteran in there for 1 year.
that's a nice little bit of change to go get a player that can help y'all out. So
Yeah.
I think they'll be just fine.
I mean, I think of it this way. If I tried to think of like an Al Horford type, right?
Yeah.
Like someone who wants a veteran who will want to play with Giannis, who wants a shot at the title. I'm betting they are able to, someone who even will take less money at that stage in their career to have a shot to win the title.
Yeah.
And like anyone, there'll be a motivation factor that, they're probably teed off that, their run ended, and yeah, they'll be back.
Why don't you bring up Horford? Because I think he's got a pretty good chance at the title right now.
Right. Well, gang, we gotta go pay some bills, but if you want to hit us up on social, Hoops Boys Pod at both Instagram and Twitter. Hit us up. Let us know what you think about these teams that unfortunately met their untimely demise in the playoffs. But we'll be right back. Hoops Boys Pod.
We are back. We are back. We are back. We are back. Let's stir the drink a little further, and let's ask maybe a bit of a controversial question. The Celtics now have gotten over this hurdle they've been pushing for several years now, and a lot of these pieces are ones that Brad Stevens had a hand in molding. And now that he's in the front office, he put a couple little extra pieces together for Ime Udoka, who of course was his hand-picked head coach, to take over for him to finish it out. So, gentlemen, who's has more of a bragging right claim for this Celtics team to be their team? Is it still a Stevens team, or is it an Udoka team?
I think it's a Udoka team. To me, this reminds me of the Warriors with Mark Jackson and Steve Kerr. You kind of had a team that was knocking on the door for years, and then new coach comes in and he knocks it down, and he gets them over the hump. And even though the Celtics haven't won yet, they at least made it to the finals, and they went on that tear, the second part of the season. And it always just seems like Brad Stevens' teams just, I guess, couldn't get over the hump. I don't know if they didn't gel well or he didn't put guys in the right places, but Udoka seems to just have the key to the castle right now. That's kind of like Steve Kerr did, 7-8 years ago, whenever the Warriors made a head coach over Mark Jackson. So I'm gonna go with Udoka team.
I'd have to. Well, if I can back up a little further, I mean, this is still primarily to me a Danny Ainge team. Really, the stars on this team are guys that Ainge brought into the building. He drafted most of them. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Brad Stevens has done an excellent job. The coach obviously has done a nice job. Stevens, you can say, put his twist on it, which we've been talking about him all night. He brought Al Horford back. That they're not here without Al Horford. So even just that one move alone. So I think they all had a piece. But I mean, the core of this team is still, Robert Williams, who we've loved. Another guy drafted lower than he probably should have been, another Ainge move. So, I mean, I think, just because it's like when Calhoun left and they won the title next year, it's still Calhoun's team. He brought in all the players. So I think, Danny needs a little shout out because he drafted most of these players, and so organizational win, put it that way, all around, an organizational win.
Do you think that is more Danny than Brad? As for all those years they were 1-2, and a college coach coming in obviously wants a lot of guards, and they sure has drafted a lot of guards.
See, I'm not of the belief that last year, for instance, was necessarily Brad's fault. I applaud him for saying, you know what, I think they can use a different voice. Their best players weren't great. They were a mess the year prior. The young kids still needed to mature more. They had a horrible for what talent they had season the year prior. And I just, like I said, I just think organizationally, I don't put that on Brad. I mean, he said himself, yeah, he realizes he could have done a better job. His coaching wasn't the reason they had a horrible season last year, though. I think the young kids got better. They gelled better. Their stars, Tatum, looks like he has taken that leap to superstardom. He was close, but so I don't want to say a one-off last year, but I kind of do. I think Brad and Danny have in sync on organizational direction, and I think obviously it's paid off.
Partner, what's your
Um,
take?
I feel like this is a Doka team executively produced by Brad Stevens.
What a political answer.
I feel like, I don't know if putting Marcus Smart as the starting point guard, I don't know whose move that was, but it's about time. Also going back, they traded Tyson in the beginning of the season, and then they went out and got him back. I think that was huge as well. I don't know if that's a Brad Stevens thing or Doka was like, "Oh, go get him back." Or I don't know what that is. So, whatever formula it is, it's working. And shout out to the Celtics, man.
I would venture that Tice probably was a Stevens decision because I don't know if Adoka would have had any judgment on him other than afar.
Right.
And that's kind of a strange role player to have a strong opinion on if you're just judging him from afar. But I mean, I think Shad's comparison is fair as far as the Mark Jackson thing. But it's just weird for me. Like, what buttons was Adoka pressing that Stevens wasn't? Like what extra juice did he get out of Tatum that Brad Stevens couldn't?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a good question.
Putting people in the right spots. I don't know.
Yeah.
Certain kind of, I don't know, plays. I don't know what his play style. Just like Zen Master, Phil Jackson type stuff.
Yeah,
Like-
because it's hard to see Tatum doing. I can't pick out something that Tatum's doing different. I just see him doing everything better.
Right.
Well, if you took this year, though, like the numbers prior to when they made that phenomenal run late January, February, when they turned the season around, his shooting, like if you just looked at points per game, Tatum's in top 10. His shooting percentages stunk. Like
Right.
he was on a trajectory. So I don't care if Doka's coaching, Stevens coaching, or I'm coaching. If if my best player is shooting 30%, you're probably not going to win a lot of games. So even look at his numbers from February on. He, for whatever reason, he was just struggling. I don't care who's coaching. If your best player is going to play like a superstar, you're going to win a lot of games. And if he's going to shoot like he played for the Knicks for 20 years, you're going to be the Knicks. So
I thought you said the superstar.
well, the Knicks have had plenty of the superstars.
Very Freudian slip.
Right. Dang, I had one more point about the Celtics. I forget. Oh, even like Adoka seems to impacted a lot of people on the team, even Marcus Smart. He seems like a legit point guard in this league. It's like I've seen him make some passes. I'm just like, I didn't know he could do that. I thought he was just a 3-and-D guy, but he seemed to take a leap since Adoka has gotten there.
Yeah, it's Smart. He got to a point where he was very polarizing as a player because you either loved him or you hated him, and there wasn't a lot of people that kind of like stuck with him through his career, but he really kind of turned it up an extra notch in this run.
Hey,
Yeah.
one point
Maybe it
about
was just being a starter. I don't know.
one point about Smart, and I think we touched on this in a previous podcast. When they were struggling early in the year, and most guys do not do this in public. Marcus Smart flat out said he kind of threw a shot at Tatum and Jaylen Brown. It was one of those games where the ball wasn't moving. They had far too many of those. And Smart actually said in the press, he didn't name them directly, but everyone he was talking about, he goes, "Our stars have to learn how to play more selfless basketball." He flat out said it. And he has enough clout in that locker room. He's respected enough as a player that Brown and Tatum, they knew who he was talking about.
Yeah.
So even from a leadership role, I mean, like Smart took that change as well. He became more of a leader, and he was right. Again, because I'm in Boston, you saw the Celtics early in the year. They stunk, and plain and simple. Way too many, isolation, no one moving possessions. Obviously late in the game. Well, then they're throwing two on Jason Tatum. He wasn't dishing the ball quick enough. It was kind of ugly basketball early in the season. So,
Yeah.
but Smart, even from that perspective, they knew who he was talking about. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
As far as other standout performers, and who knows, maybe someone picks Marcus Smart. But who do we think was the players that either made a name for themselves that we wouldn't have otherwise expected, or veteran that came out of the woodwork, or superstar that took it to another level? So who's been the standout performer so far in each of your eyes in the postseason? Greg, who's yours?
So I'm going to go a little off the radar here, and I'm going to go Kevon Looney. The Warriors, their problems that they've had somewhat the season and even during this playoff run is when Memphis, the one game in that series where Memphis, I think, was up 75 by the mid-third quarter. They were in the Memphis going to the paint at will, and it looked like Memphis had found a formula to change the series. Then all of a sudden, Kevon Looney comes game 6. He has 22 rebounds, 5 assists. This is a guy that is totally not on the radar even for them sometimes. And you look, he's had one game with 22 rebounds. He's had 18 in the clinching game versus Dallas. He's had 12 in a dozen in 2 other playoff games. And that's exactly what Golden State needed. So honestly, as crazy as this sounds, Looney actually made a difference for Golden State. They may not because of what he brought in that series when Memphis, it looked like, was starting to expose a weakness. If Kevon Looney's not in that game, they're probably not winning that series. So I'm going to go off the radar, and because going forward, if they have a chance against Boston, he's going to have to actually be a presence. So Kevon Looney, my unheralded star.
How do you rank his impact versus that of Jordan Poole?
I actually okay. So I think on a whole, Jordan Poole obviously is the better player of what we're talking. But for what Golden State needs, I could actually make an argument right now. They almost need Looney more than Poole because they're going to get their points regardless.
Yeah.
I mean, and obviously Poole has been excellent, but you get my point. They can still score the basketball without Poole. They don't have a chance in the paint without Looney if he doesn't play well. So I actually think going forward, the immediacy of the finals, Kevon Looney is actually the bigger factor to what they do.
Chad, who's your standout performer of the playoffs?
I think it's a fairly obvious pick, but I'm going with Doncic. Just what he's done with this team, it's like I said, it just touched on it earlier, but it seemed like he brought a bunch of unknowns, a bunch of nobody into a deep playoff run into the conference finals. He beat the number 1 seed, like they stole something in Game 7. I know the scoreboard says they only won by like 32. It seemed like they won by like 70. Just with in that game. He seemed like he set every kind of playoff kind of record for his age, for scoring or anything like that. Every time he's on the floor. I think he just became like a bona fide superstar, and I think honestly, if he did like a top 75 players after this season, I think he would have made it on this list if they would have reached the top 25 players of all time. I think this kind of playoff run helps him, he's like an all-time great already, kind of like with Shaq in the top 50 4 years ago, or like Giannis did like last year's year before type of thing. I think that's how much it helps his legacy, and that's how much of a merchant that he took, just in the playoff run.
That fair comparison, partner, to Luka this year, Giannis last year?
Yeah, I feel like to me, I feel like I feel the same way about Luka. I think he's gonna be when it's all said and done, he's gonna be one of those ones like Mount Rushmore type players. He's a basketball savant, unstoppable at times, does everything for you on the court. He's dominant. And even if you try, like he's hard to stop. I don't know what you could do to stop him. He's gonna move the ball around. We seen him do more with less. So if like we said earlier in the podcast, that if he gets a couple of goers with him, the sky's the limit for that Mavericks team.
Shad brought up an interesting option off air as far as that tag team member.
So what did I say? I don't remember. Okay.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, but what James Harden we getting?
Yeah, he's got to have his mind right. He's got to have his mind right, because if he's just gonna be a stinkerino, then it's not worth ruining Luka's trajectory.
Yeah, I Bradley Beal would be. Like, I think that would be like the perfect thing for him, like a perfect pairing.
Oh,
yeah,
that's a good one. Greg, you got another one to fit in?
My
wish list.
Well, I need a moment because my head hurts from the idea of putting James Harden with Luka. That is the last guy on earth. And forget getting his mind right. He's got to get his diet right. And I'm not trying to be mean, but Harden, it doesn't look physically like, trying to be decent here, but I think he's put on a couple of pounds over the years, and he's slowing down, so with age in general. So So first off, please don't ever entertain that idea. I feel like he could ruin Luka. Oh, geez.
He's got to go on the Tom Brady diet.
Yeah,
TB12.
Yeah, as you can tell, you know where I stand on James Harden. I don't need to have us here for 4 weeks, and I could still keep going.
Draft will be over by the time Greg gets his final point out.
Yeah, I to put in perspective, I think my wife, who doesn't even know who James Harden is like, oh God, is he at it with the James Harden thing again? Well,
yeah, yeah, honey.
Yeah,
his guts.
Yeah. Yeah, like when they were cutting him apart, I'm like, man, I want to be part of this telecast because I'll be like Shad on that one. I'll be the haterade on that.
Right.
Yeah. I think put it this way, I think I hate him more than Shad hates Doc Rivers, and that's no exaggeration.
Wow.
And we know where he stands on that one. That's the best way to compare it right now.
You don't want Doc Rivers to coach the Clippers again, Sean?
For what? So they can underachieve?
Coach what? The practice squad?
Yeah.
Partner, what you got for a standout performer?
I'm gonna go like more traditional. I'm gonna pick the Greek Freak. I think that his dominance throughout the playoffs, even though he didn't make it past the second round, those first 2 rounds, you could really see like, oh, he's the most dominant thing, the most terrifying thing in the NBA. Even in that Celtic series, I have some numbers here. He's the only player in league history to tally 200 points, 100 rebounds, and 50 assists in a single series, like against the Celtics. And he had three 40-point efforts in that series and 2 20-point rebound efforts in that series. I just think like he lives up to his name. the hype is real. The Greek Freak is my pick for the standout player.
Could there have been anything greater that he could have done off of last year without winning another title? Besides how he still almost got them past Boston, despite everything that was there.
I don't know. Like, what it was coming to a point watching that Boston Buck series that I was like, I started to feel real bad for Giannis because I'm tired of seeing him go out there and having to drop 45 points just to, you know what I mean, just to be in the game or just to like get a dub. You know, I'm like, I don't want to see another series of this, of Giannis having to do this for another series. So I was glad like the Celtics kind of like, you know, wrapped it up for him, but Giannis was still dominant throughout those first 2 rounds.
James, on your point, you know what the comparison I came up with watching him during the playoffs this year. If you ever watch Barry Sanders run in his prime, and he'd literally make defenders fall down, it looked like a video game. That's kind of like what watching Giannis is like now. Like the other players know it. We can't stop him.
There's nothing we can do.
There's no one in the league individually that's stopping him. You're basically 5 guys and hope. You basically the only thing you can do is hope he doesn't shoot well from 3 because you can't guard him when he's going downhill. It's a bucket, it's a foul every single time. Like he's really at that. That's what like he makes professional stars look like kids on the field. That's why
look like little kids,
like defenders. All stars literally breaking their ankles, falling down, and no one touched these guys. He's the change of direction. That's what Giannis right now. He's like a video game to me.
No, he is. He's the creative player for sure.
You see the frustration on the defenders. They're like, well, I can't. You'll see like a couple times, and I don't have it exact, but you'll see like the opposing coaches like getting mad at the players. Oh, no play D, and you see the players' reactions. Like, what am I supposed to do?
Just throw your hands up. That's all you can do.
Yeah,
that's all you can do.
Yeah.
Do you just apply the Pistons mindset against Shaq and Kobe that one year and just let him do whatever the hell he wants and just shut everyone else down?
Yeah.
Again, in my opinion, the only thing, and he shot it better, the only thing you can do is leave him open from 3 because he's not a great 3-point shooter.
Not yet.
Yeah, it seems like he is.
Yeah.
But you get my point. If you're trying to play, if you're going to let him get in the paint, it's lights out, ball game over.
Yeah.
That's there's no alternative.
Right. A pinky toe in the paint for Giannis is a bucket.
He scores on triple teams when he's going downhill. He's too big, he's too strong, he's all of it.
Yeah. The scariest thing on 2 feet.
Yep.
Feels like 8.
Well, I think James Harden is scarier, but that's from a different perspective.
From a different perspective, yes.
As we know.
Mine is, well, it's funny. I almost kind of wanted to throw an audible in here and kind of kick around Marcus Smart a little bit more, but I'll stick to what I was going to go with originally. And Al Horford feels like he's been around for 30 years. The fact that he played, what was the stat? 140 playoff games without ever reaching the finals. It's just crazy to me. Like, how are you in the playoffs that many times and you never have made the finals? Like, how many of those Atlanta Hawks teams disappointed in the second round for
all of
that?
them?
Yeah,
all of them.
for that number to get that high, and then then of course he wound up with Boston for a little while too at the beginning of this run. So that contributed a good chunk of games too. But like, I would have never guessed that he had this much left in the tank. Not just to be like a fringe contributor, like you just got to be a veteran that does the 2 or 3 things that we're missing that we need you to do, or be like encouraging voice to get Tatum or Brown or Smart or whoever over the hump to get them to bring it home for us. But the fact that he was so significant contributor that you could have said Al Horford won probably at least 2 games out of every series, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, there's not even a question he did.
And that's so impressive to me. The guy's like pushing 40 years old.
Yeah. No,
know,
he's
we're-
definitely playing out his mind.
Where was
Yeah.
it 2 years ago when he was in Philly? That's when he made Ben Simmons better.
No one can make Ben Simmons better.
Yeah, him and Harden together. Yeah, what could go wrong there?
Can you imagine if they ever did? Oh my God.
Jeez.
The
Poor
one,
Joel.
the one never none of us picked, of course. We had two superstars get picked. The one nobody touched was Tatum.
Yeah.
Jason Tatum was this mold of the question for about 4 months, not just a few weeks of the playoffs. About 4 months. This was Jason Tatum, the standout performer.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler too.
Yeah, Jimmy too.
Jimmy Butler too.
Jimmy had an amazing playoff.
But we kind of knew, we kind of knew Jimmy Butler was capable of it. It's just a matter of how far he could take a team. But we knew he was capable of it. Tatum, it's just we kept wanting him to be capable of it. We knew he had it in him, but he just wasn't doing it. You know what I mean? Like, I think
Yeah.
Butler, we knew what he could do. We expected him to do it. It was just a matter of whether he did it or not. And we weren't, because Jimmy Butler he wasn't like a top 5 draft pick. You know, he kind of like worked his way up to the status he's at. I think we probably like don't have as harsh a critique on him, maybe. Is that fair?
Well, that one thing, just if I touch on Jimmy, I don't disagree, but Jimmy hit a new level offensively this year that he had never scratched. Not that
I
he
agree.
wasn't capable, but
Yeah.
like even Jimmy fans would say, "Wow, like I did not see this offensive version of Jimmy." But he's always been an excellent all-around player and more than capable offensively. He took a step up to an elite level offensively this year. That jump, I would say, I did not expect that.
Yeah, Jimmy definitely surprised me with his scoring, especially when Tyler Hero went down. It's basically Jimmy or nothing. And for at least for one game, he really showed like I can carry the scoring load for this team. Jimmy had a phenomenal playoffs.
He sure did.
So no, go ahead, partner. Sorry.
I think you were gonna tee up what I was gonna tee up.
Oh, okay, cool. Since we're at the big dance now, the finals between the Boston Celtics and the Golden State Warriors, I want to get our gang's picks. So, Shad, who you got raising the Larry O'Brien Trophy in the end?
All right. I think the Warriors win game 1 and nothing else. So I think Celtics in 5.
Celtics in 5.
You want me to put analysis behind it, or you just telling me want me to pick? Tell me.
Yeah, let's hear it. Why you feel that way?
Well, I think game 1, Celtics are going to have jitters. The first NBA Finals game. I think the Warriors are going to be very well rested. But I think the Celtics match up very well with the Warriors. Like I said, I think the Warriors are a step or two slower than they were during their kind of dynasty run. They're still good, but I don't think they're great. Steph Curry, he lost a step, like I said. Thompson, he's not the same. Draymond I think, is a shell of himself, definitely offensively. Defensively, still pretty good. But the Celtics are younger. They got emerging superstar in Tatum. They have a emerging like all-star in Brown. Marcus Smart, best player of the year, who could kind of be like a Patrick Beverly type of player with some offense. So Curry or whoever he's guarding. Then they have the role players like Horford. They have Williams. They have Knight. I just think they're the younger version of the Warriors. 7-8 years ago, when they had this young core of guys with a little bit of veteran leadership, like they had in Iguodala back in the day. They have Horford now. I think this is possibly the start of like a championship run for Boston where they maybe win like three out of the next like 7 or 8 championships if they keep this core together. I just think it's that good. I think the Warriors have been fool's gold during this playoff run. Like I said, they've played injured teams. They have played teams that are clearly much better than other teams, like in the Dallas Mavericks, where they had one superstar and everybody else was just average pretty much. And they haven't played anybody in the playoffs like this. And I think the Celtics energy, the Celtics athleticism is going to take over once that initial shock wears off. And you see Boston Celtics went on the road. I think they're going to, I don't know, I know we used to call Oracle, I don't know where they play now, and they could just, kind of quiet the crowd and they won't get frazzled after that. And they just shut the Warriors down. It's a bad match for the Warriors. I wanted to go with a complete sweep, but I think the Warriors will get them in game one, and that's it.
I kind of agree with you, Shad. I feel the same way. I think if they bring the same level of intensity defensively, like how they did to the Brooklyn Nets and the Bucks and the Heat, there was one game the Heat scored under 90 points in the series. Although the Warriors do have a more of a scoring punch, I feel like they're not scared. They're not scared of anything the Warriors can do to them, honestly. And on the other end, they're going to have to guard the Celtics wings. And you best believe they're going to be hunting Steph and maybe even Klay to an extent, because we're going to test that knee and that Achilles. We're going to test it. Come out here and guard me on this wing and see if you can stay in front of me. Klay's an awesome defender, but he's lost a step. I feel like the Celtics are gonna win this championship. I feel the same way as Shad.
Shad's really clinging to that Mark Jackson, Steve Kerr comparison, though.
How many games you got? How many games you may win?
Celtics in 6.
Greg, what's yours? Go next. I'll wait.
I'm gonna be so again. I'm not as harsh a critic on Golden State as Shad is, for example. But I do agree with him that I don't think this is the best matchup for Golden State. I think the depth, especially in the interior and the paint, I think are going to be big issues for Golden State in this series. Boston's already shown what happens if one of their big guns goes down. Well, it's happened a number of times. They've had Williams out for a number, and Robert Williams is a bigger factor than people realize. When he's right, he's really good. So they've lost games for him. They've lost games to Marcus Smart. They've blown games at home and you thought the series was over, and they go win on the road. I feel like they can win in many different ways. And even if you look at injuries, there's a chance someone goes down in the finals. I don't think Golden State Golden State cannot win if one of their stars is not 100%. That's not going to happen. For them, I think if they have it, and I do give them a shot in this series. I don't think this is blowout city. I think they're going to need someone like Kuminga to have a meteoric rise in one or two of these playoff games, because I don't think this is the best matchup for Golden State. Boston's winning playoff games with Grant Williams hitting 9 threes in Game 7. He's probably their 7th or 8th option. You see the point here.
Yeah.
They have so many ways. Yeah, they have so many ways to beat you. I think that depth is going to be the overriding factor. I think the Celtics win in 6.
Honestly, it's funny Shed said 5, although I don't think it'll go in quite the same order, but my first gut reaction was also 5 games. But I think Golden State will take one of the middle ones. I think they'll take 2 or 3. But I couldn't agree more about the matchups. I just don't think Golden State's favored it. I think their youth, their energy, their physicality, I think all of those really dwarf Golden State. And if we could all be wrong, and Golden State gets another trophy and they can say Kevin Durant who. But
Right.
I think I mean my gut is Boston in 5. I kind of feel like Golden State has too much pride to go out in 5. So I think my betting money would be more 6 games, but I really do my gut does say 5. I just I don't think it'll be like a Philadelphia 76ers thing where they Golden State will take the first one and then that's it. But they'll get like 2 or I think they'll take game 2 or game 3 and it'll kind of that'll be like the last oil on their wick and that'll be done. But the only question mark I can really say on Boston's part is who's Marcus Smart going to guard? Like, is he going to try to shut down Steph and risk getting in foul trouble? Or do you just stick Marcus Smart on Clay and take him completely out of the game?
I think for my money's worth for Boston, if I'm putting together the game plan, what I think, I'm foolish to say, don't worry about Steph. Steph's going to get his points. Clay's going to get their points. Where Boston can really eat them up are the rest of the matchups. Like even like a Daniel Tice, who's a big burly. I bet you see a game in this series, he has 16 points. I kind of think for Boston, like Steph's going to get his 25, his 30. If they control they control the other guys on the roster, don't let Poole go for 30. Don't let Draymond. I think they'll be all right. Like don't give extra help to Steph. Again, if Smart gets in foul trouble, you can move him on. They have enough. They're deep enough and versatile enough that it doesn't have to be Marcus Smart guarding him. They can throw different looks at him.
They could put Grant Williams on if they want.
Exactly. Grant, as we were even talking about, Grant actually has been one of the better defenders against even Giannis in that series.
Yes.
Again, he shoved out, of course, but the point is, you're right. Grant Williams can do that. They're really versatile. They really are on both ends.
To be honest, I wouldn't like. I mean, I'll put a good defender on Clay, but I'm not really too worried about Clay. He's been very streaky throughout the playoffs. Like, yeah, he has the capability to go crazy, but I don't. You know what I mean? I'm more worried about Steph than anything. And Michael Jordan Poole, because if that guy shows up, it might be GG's for the Celtics.
Well, Jordan Poole is another interesting one because Jaylen Brown is also an exceptional defender. So do you put Jaylen Brown on Poole and have it be more of a edge Jaylen Brown where he could kind of get Poole out of sorts and kind of has to have his way with it? Or do you just play the mismatch, put Jaylen on Steph where he can play a little bit more smarter where it's like, okay, I don't need to necessarily shut him down. I just need to try and make life a little bit more miserable and just work the fact that, he's 6'6" and Steph's 6'3",
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. And Jordan Poole comes off the bench too. So like I don't know if you're going to extend minutes for Jaylen or take him out quickly, you know what I mean? So they have somebody that can make sure Jordan Poole is held in check. But I don't know. The one thing I couldn't say about the Warriors, I know we all picked the Celtics to win the chip, but the one thing I can say about the Warriors is their execution late in games, third quarter specifically, is second to none. I've seen the Celtics in a lot of games throughout the playoffs fall in love with the 3-ball, even though it's not falling, and that cost them some wins in the offs this year. And if they do that with the Warriors, they're going to take advantage of that. And that's not the team you want to play around with because they will get you out of here quickly. But I can't wait to see it.
I think America is quick. I think America, if you don't watch the Celtics, you think, oh, it's Jaylen Brown, it's Tatum. I think the rest of the country is about to realize how good a basketball team they are.
Yeah,
their 8th and 9th players that come in the rotation are very valuable players on that team. I think they're going to be a huge factor. The Pritchards, the Tices, the Derek Whites, the Grant Williams. I think America's about to learn who all these guys are. They're going to be a factor.
what's the number of ejections Draymond's gonna get this series?
72 in a 6-game series. 72 ejections in 6 playoff games.
Set the line at 1.5.
1.5. Because the way that the Celtics play, they play very physical, and you know how Draymond is.
He will lose his mind, no doubt.
He's gonna lose it. He's gonna lose it.
He's not gonna like Robert Williams very much.
No, he's not. And we've seen size be a big problem for Golden State, especially against like a team like Memphis.
That's it.
They had a hard time dealing with their size. They eventually wore them down, but this Celtics team, it's their handful. It's a lot to deal with.
Yeah, and I don't, correct me wrong. The other thing too, I don't see any glaring weaknesses in Boston. Like even a lot of the other teams in the league, you can point to something. I really think that's Boston's best at. They don't really.
Yeah.
You know, they don't have your conventional bit, but their bigs are physical. Whether they might not be 7-footers, they're physical. They're good defenders. I'm impressed with that team, no doubt.
Yeah.
Chad, what do you think about the defensive matchups, or maybe just in general, extra final thought?
No, I think like it's a Celtics matchup. Well, I think they're very long. They're much younger, more athletic, than the Warriors stars are today. So I think, they could give Jordan Poole, who only seems to play well at home, like fits. Klay Thompson, you don't have to worry about him, doing anything as a standstill shooter. Steph, he's still, kind of like a Reggie Miller running around the tank, but he's not as quick. He doesn't do his triple step backs like he used to anymore. And then, Draymond, you really don't have to worry about him, pretty much doing anything. I think it's just Celtics depth, their versatility, their athleticism is too much for the Warriors, and it's going to catch up to the Warriors. I'm not seeing anything like this. They kind of cruise their way, to the NBA Finals, and this is where I think they get a awakening.
They did. They definitely did.
Could you say the same about the Celtics?
No.
No, they were. Celtics had to fight. I mean, they cruised their way past the Nets, but the Nets still had, even the complete mess that they were, that's still a lot of firepower to deal with.
No,
don't forget too, because you look at that series and Boston swept them. The first 2 games, which were the series, Brooklyn had leads in the final minute, and both. Point is like that. Okay, yeah, they whooped up in games 3 and 4, but Brooklyn easily could have been up 2-0 in that series, and it's a whole different ballgame we're talking about.
Right.
But yes, it was a sweep, but those 2 games were not sweep-worthy games. Yeah. It took Tatum hitting a last-second shot to win.
Right.
And that could have been up 2-0 going home.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think my biggest thing I'm going to look for in this series is I really want to see this as Tatum's final moment to shine, to cement his status in today's league, because I think Golden State's best defender is probably still Klay, and I don't think there's any shot in hell that Klay can slow him down.
They're definitely going to put Wiggins on.
Not this Klay anyway.
That's play though.
Wiggins, what you said, has played very well.
Yeah.
Wiggins has actually played very well lately.
He's played very well, yeah.
He has.
He was guarding Luka for that whole series.
Yep.
We seen what Luka did to, Mikal Bridges, which is considered an elite defender.
Yep.
So I think Wiggins can, not that he's going to stop him or anything like that, but he's going to make life a little tough.
One tidbit, if I'm, again, I don't think this is a blowout type of series. I don't. One that interesting for Golden State. So we are worried, as am I, about their depth. Golden State, did you catch? It was the game that Dallas beat them. They yanked the start. Golden State, Kerr yanked the starters. They were literally down, I think, 38 at the time. The second unit of Golden State got the game to single digits, to the point Kerr brought them all back in with because now at 8 points, they actually had a shot.
Yeah.
So Golden State, like I said, guys like Kuminga, when he started to get some minutes, like he can score. Kuminga is going to be a player.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think this is impossible for them, but I think for them to win, they're going to need something like that. Yeah, because I do believe if you just look at Clay, and I think if Clay and Steph combined for 60 in a game, I think the Celtics could still win that individual game.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's where I am with that.
Your boy Looney has a tough series ahead of him.
He does.
I don't know. We're gonna see though, but as we all feel, I feel like the Celtics are gonna come out on top.
Shad and I got 5 games. You two got 6 games.
Yeah.
The 2 correct guys have 6. The 2 incorrect have 5.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know. I feel like it should fade the public now.
Right. Or we could all be wrong and the
Warriors
sweep
win
them.
it.
Yeah.
They sweep them.
On the same token, though, I would say this. I'd be surprised. I'm not like astonishingly shocked if Golden State won this series either, though. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised, but I don't think this is Boston walks in the building and the game over. I do not see that.
Right.
Because I would think logically 1 or 2 games, Steph probably blows up. They have their night where they hit 53s. You figure that'll happen once or twice during the series. At least I do.
Mm-hmm.
And then takes a bad performance. Even Boston, as much as we talked, they've even within the playoffs, like forgetting which game, game 5 was it against Miami? The home. Sorry, I'm forgetting which game it is. One of the home games they lost. They played like garbage, like most of the night. They made a run to take a lead late, but the point is, Boston has had, like you said, one of the games against Milwaukee, they fell way too in love with the 3 ball. So, do I think they're more talented? Yes, I do. They're not immune to lapses for minutes at a time. We have seen it.
Yeah.
Hence they lost 2 home games to the Heat.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, and the problem with falling into a lapse against the Warriors is the Warriors go ahead and hit 4 threes in a row.
That's it.
Yeah.
And does Boston then get lulled into that game, which they don't want to play with Golden State? But
Right.
You see the point. Like the Phoenix game 7, they get down 20, where Phoenix, I mean, granted, they probably weren't going to win because they were horrible that night, but they didn't have to get them all back at once. But human nature dictated they did, and then 20 was 40. The Celtics are not immune to that either. So
Yeah, and the Celtics, I think, are more equipped to do it now than they were in, say, December. But I still don't think they want to be doing that. I still don't think they want to be teasing that bear.
Definitely not.
Yeah. And the other thing that they can't do, the Celtics can't do if they want to win the series, they cannot turn the ball over against Golden State. Because like you said, in a 4-minute span, they'll hit 8 threes, you know what I'm saying? And you turn over the board twice.
One of the Denver games with Golden State, like it seemed like Denver did everything right for, call it 38 minutes. They were hovering around an 8 to 10 point lead most of the night. And literally it's like I went to get a drink of water and in 13 seconds, Golden State now has a lead because they just banged 5 threes. They are capable of that. And at some point in the series, they're probably going to have a couple of those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, you can't, we can't discount this like this is, no, I mean, you have some, Hall of Fame players on that side of the equation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it'll be an entertaining series, but I think the Irish eyes will be smiling in the end.
That's the thing with me. I don't want to like disrespect those guys because I just feel like they have too much pride to go out so meekly, but nothing on paper adds up in my brain that they have a substantive advantage over Boston.
Right.
I mean, if you just look at the Boston's playoff run, and if you've watched, you've legit had Grant Williams literally was their leading scorer in game 7 against Milwaukee, who no one would even think of. Peyton Pritchard has had points in the series where, same thing, instant offense. He came in, he's got 10 points in 2 minutes, turned the whole tide of the game. That's what I mean. There are guys coming from every angle from Boston, and I feel like they have. If things go wrong or not according to game plan, they have more ways to recalibrate. Is how I put it. That's that, and I think that's the best thing about them.
Yeah.
The game plan can blow up. Even one of the stars cannot have a great night, and someone else is fit. Al Horford, when he needs to score, puts up 30 that game.
Yeah, that was sick.
Yeah.
I was just like, what?
And he was dominant.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. These are not. That's why I said I think America is about to learn about the rest of the Celtics. That's my take on this series. Yeah.
You weren't putting up points like this since Josh Smith was bricking threes.
Jeez.
Poor Josh Smith. Well, gang, this has been a tremendous show. Thanks for kicking it with us. Shout out to our guest experts, Greg and Shad. Your insight is always tremendous. Shout out to America's favorite bitch-ass white boy, CProc. And in the meantime, let us know your finals picks. Hit us up on our socials at HoopsBoysPod, at Twitter and Instagram. Let us know what you think. But until next time, Hoops Boys Pod. Peace.
Kobe.